a recipe that I think you'll really love, and it's great for a weekend. It does take a little bit of time, but it doesn't take that much work. It's a roasted pork shoulder with a fennel and rosemary rub, and I think you guys are gonna really, really love it. So to start off with, what you wanna do is make a paste. Take 2 tablespoons of olive oil and put it into a food processor. 1, 2, 8 cloves of garlic, 3 tablespoons of rosemary leaves, 2 tablespoons of fennel seed, 2 teaspoons of coarse salt, and a teaspoon of black pepper. This is a really, really flavorful rub that you put all over the outside of your pork shoulder, and then you slow roast it until the pork is falling apart and tender and so delicious. Just want to grind everything up to a paste. That's my paste. I have a 4-pound pork roast here. This is a pork shoulder. It has a lot of like internal fat and a little coating of outer fat, and all of that as it's cooking sort of breaks down and it becomes very, very tender and delicious. You can't cook it quickly though, because everything will seize up and then it'll be tough. It takes a long time for those fibers to break down and become tender. Poke it all over with the tip of a paring knife. This will allow some of the paste to get inside of the pork. The flavors of fennel and rosemary are so good together. They're kind of like the inside of a porchetta. If you've ever had a porchetta, if you've ever been lucky enough to travel to Italy, they do pork roasts with all of these amazing fragrant ingredients like this. Have your oven preheating to 450 degrees so it gets nice and hot to brown the pork when you put it in. So just take your twine, slip it underneath. There are fancier ways of doing this that butchers use, but I always just cut pieces that are big enough to go around my roast and then tie them. I don't like to cover up too much of my roast with twine. I just want it nice and compact. So then just transfer your pork to an oiled roasting pan. Get this right into your 450 degree oven and roast it for 30 minutes. Then reduce the temperature to 300 degrees and continue roasting until it's 170 degrees in the thickest part. That'll take about 2.5 hours. I have my pork resting over here, tented with foil to keep warm, and that also allows the juices to redistribute. And I'm going to make my sauce right in this roasting pan, which is the advantage of making something in a nice heavy pan, because you can put it right on top of the stove to make a sauce. To the pan, you can add a 1/2 cup of dry white wine to deglaze, get all those brown bits up from the bottom of the pan. That's going to make a delicious sauce. I love to incorporate every bit of flavor that I can, and scraping up these brown bits from the bottom of the roasting pan really do that. You want to cook off the alcohol in the wine, or at least most of the alcohol in the wine. So cook this for a few minutes and it'll reduce down a little bit as well. This is already looking like a nice rich sauce, but I don't want just wine in my sauce, and I want to give it a little bit of thickener. So I'm adding a tablespoon of flour. You can whisk that in so it doesn't get lumpy, and then add 1.5 cups of chicken broth. Whisk it in vigorously. I see that I missed a couple of pieces of that flour and it did get a little bit lumpy. I will remove those or strain them out afterwards, or if I'm lucky, my vigorous whisking will get rid of them. You're not looking for anything too thick here, just a nice sort of lightly thickened gravy. Give it a taste. You might need to season it, but remember your rub was already seasoned, so there's going to be some salt already in there. It's great. Okay, so now carve the pork, uncover. Fennel and pork is one of my favorite flavors. You add rosemary, forget about it. It should be nice and tender. You can slice it nice and thinly as well. Slice it up, get it on a platter, but before you do that, give it a taste, because you're not going to believe it. No, you are going to believe it, because I'm here to tell you that it is fantastic. You're not going to be able to stop eating it. And the great thing about it is it's a nice big roast, so you can make sandwiches with it tomorrow.